All right, well, President Obama has already arrived at the United Nations to address his foreign counterparts at the General Assembly any moment. Meantime, an explosive new book out by Bob Woodward suggesting the president is sending mixed messages to the world on the war on terror. So if you're a world leader who deals with terrorism in your own backyard, what do you make of this? We're honored to have with us right now another president, the president of Georgia, Mikheil Saakashvili. Mr. President, good to have you here.
Good to be on your show back. It almost feels like home here.
It's very good to have you, sir. There are some concerns that the president is sending mixed messages on terror. Do you think he's serious and consistent on it?
Well, you know, we are in Afghanistan. We are the highest per capita contributor to this operation in Afghanistan. We have soldiers in the south of Afghanistan, in Helmand. They are combat troops. There are no caveats, unlike some other allies.
In other words, you stay there. You're no talk of pulling out.
Yeah, and actually we've taken some casualties, but I think it's very important that our people, and especially what relief is thrilling, and you know, for me it's also very, you know, in some ways it's a very positive experience that even the families of the people who got wounded or killed, they take in such a dignified manner the whole thing. And you know, it should be taken till the end. It should. I mean, we cannot leave Afghanistan without solving this because and we all.
But you know, and you've dealt with Russia, and they can be difficult. They've had problems in Afghanistan. Most of other countries have. And the argument is the U.S. has experienced the same thing.
Look, Russia, you cannot compare those two. Russia was there for all the wrong causes. They were there for the same reasons why they are now, right now, in my country and occupying 20% of its territories. They wanted to subjugate Afghanistan. What I think we are doing now, all of us, and especially primarily the U.S., but all the other countries that believe in the cause, we believe that the country can be stabilized, that there is future for that people, there is future for some kind of local version of democracy and functioning government, and basically for a safer world. And that's basically, and I think there is no way we should give up on that struggle. And
well, and not to believe this book that's out, Mr. President, you could be right. But obviously, the administration, the president, more to the point, torn early on about what to do about Afghanistan, concerns about being in there a long time, $1 trillion cost, a lot of lives lost, questioning whether it was worth it and is worth it. That's the gist of what's causing all dust up here.
Well, I like Bob Woodward as an amazing journalist. I haven't read his book, so I'm not in position to comment on it. I believe that those Americans with whom we are serving there, their commanders are very serious. They're very committed. You know, they are taking casualties. But you know, I've watched those American military. They're amazing people. They have certain, you know, special honorable way of holding themselves, special intellectual way. I don't get General Petraeus personally, and you know, has been very complimentary about Georgian soldiers. And some American generals have seen, they've said, you know, these soldiers have something that you cannot really describe in words, that is very special. And it's true, because we've been fighting for freedom, for our own independence, and we understand this, and for the same values for centuries now. And I believe that ultimately American people and the whole mission will prevail, and I don't see the way back from that.
You mentioned, Mr. President, Russia earlier, and of course you have had your run-ins with Vladimir Putin. And there was an argument some time ago that he was actually trying to kill you when there was an uprising. And, you know, I know it's been some time, but you still talk about them as an occupier. What do you think of Putin? Do you think he is running the show there? Do you think he wants back in full power there? What?
Well, first of all, not only I talk about them as occupiers, but basically the American official position is that the Russians are illegally occupying part of Georgia. This official position of many foreign governments, of all the responsible people. What else you call when you come into other country, take piece of the territory, expel basically 80% of the population. We have 500,000 refugees. People talk about Darfur, but if you compare population-wise, this is happening in Europe. This is happening in a very civilized country.
Do you think this is coming down from Putin?
Well, obviously, not only is Damin coming down with it, he's very proud of it, and you know, and you should.
You think he's calm?
You should not be surprised for he's a person that basically ruthlessly treated his own citizens. Remember, this is the country where the most talented businessman, Mikhail Saakashvili, is still in prison, and he basically now getting double their jeopardy. He served his term in Gulag in Siberia, right. So it expired, so they had to let him go, and now they brought him back basically and trying him second time,
on new charges,
almost for
right.
basically all for the same stuff.
But it's the same Russia that has been financing Iran's nuclear ambitions, peaceful nuclear ambitions, Russia says. But what do you think?
Well,
what should the world do about that?
The pattern of Russian policy has been to allow problem going in order to capitalize on that. So, if Iran is solved, if the whole issue goes away, then what's the leverage, say, for Russians with the United States? So they've been playing this pretty smartly, promising things to the Westerners, but also, delivering things to the Iranians. And I think in the process they've lost, confidence of all sides. But, they've been doing this forever. This is not new. And certainly who is running them, of course this is Putin running. But this is a whole system of, that doesn't respect human rights, property rights, borders and neighborly relations, and basic values of humanity. And I think this kind
of...
What
if Israel acted alone, Mr. President, and decided, well, no one else is going to act against Iran, we'll act unilaterally?
You mean who should act? The U.S.?
Israel.
Well, I believe the best solution for everybody is to solve it peacefully. But of course there are basic principles. And the basic principles are that certainly, obviously, Israel has right for security and for existence. Nobody can question it. It's crystal clear for me. Every country has to live in peace, and every people, including Israel. Of course, there's big issue out there with Palestinians, and that's why the subject of negotiation. And, the language of menaces should be, it doesn't give anything. And obviously we are so close to the region. We have such a stake, especially small countries, because when big things erupt, people start to forget about small countries. But small countries also matter. We are also a very strategically important country with our values. So I think that's exactly the point where, peace should be given chance, and I hope the negotiations will really, have the results.
On to financial matters, Mr. President. What's coming out of the UN today, including the President's address before the UN Assembly, is this idea of a sort of a world tax that would help poor countries. Whether on banks, whether on rich nations, whether on a combination. What do you think of that?
Well, look, I'm coming from a country which has totally failed state. And I remember we had poverty programs. And so much money was given with my predecessor's government. And it was all black hole. They gave money for housing, they built villas for themselves. They gave money for roads and hospitals, and they had new bank accounts and new stuff. And they gave money for education. They sent their kids to get educated. I came to America on American scholarship, but they sent their kids on their own money. And I lived in a residential, like in the outskirts in Astoria, and they lived in nice apartments here.
You lived in Astoria, Queens?
Yeah, I did stay in this.
The future president of Georgia.
I loved it, though. It's a very romantic place.
That's great. Where did you hang out?
In downtown. You just mentioned it. Of course, Columbia's uptown, but I'm almost New Yorker, and every time I come back, I feel like New Yorker. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that, you need really local leadership. No international resources are needed. That's clear. But unless there is a clear evidence that people who those resources are given to. Georgia, we had to fire the entire police force. But, when I became president, before that, 98% of our population said in the polls they firsthand encountered corruption. Now it's less than 0.5%. We used to be in like 137th place in terms of doing this business, and we are now top place in Eastern and Central. Why I'm saying that? You need internal reform, support for reformers, support for transparency, accountability.
Gotcha.
And that's what really matters after all. Corruption is the word. If you eradicate C word, then it works.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Our president.